Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. It is Bruce Jordan, the Michael Jordan of hotels. Today we got Jason back in the building again for another episode, and we're going to be covering FIFA. What is revenue management like when you have one of the biggest events in the world in your market? Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Bruce.
Jason, how long have you been in the commercial strategy sector now?
It's been over 11 years and came in through operations, and I never looked back.
Yeah, like I don't want to look back after going through operations.
I mean, look, it's great because you're still touching every component of the hotels, right? And what we do, and having come in from operations originally, it gives me a great appreciation for commercial strategy and knowing what it's like to be the operator on the other end, right?
For sure, for sure. I think a lot of people really get the hotel business confused. Operations serves the guests and make sure the guest returns, but commercial strategy gets them through the door.
A hundred
So
percent.
you can't have one without the other. Now, you've actually had to cover some markets that serviced the FIFA tournament. What was that like? What are some of the things that stuck out the most as far as the change in market demand?
It was it was very very interesting. There were times where when I first came into this set of hotels in the Miami markets, rates were set incredibly high, and I'm looking at different occupancy levels of in those hotels, and it's like, okay, there's nothing on the books, zero. And I said, well, why not? Well, we've got, FIFA's coming in. We're gonna sell out, and okay, but we've got nothing on the books.
Mm-hmm.
There's no group, right? And for me, I'm of the belief that we never tell sales no. We say how.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make a group happen? Even if it's over a high demand date, I'm a firm believer in it's okay to come in a little bit under. I know a lot of people may fall when they hear me say this. It may be okay to come in a little bit under on that ADR, right? What's the total revenue for the hotel for the day, right? It's not just about average daily rate, but it's total revenue per available room,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I like to look at things from that aspect. And when doing so, look, I think the biggest opportunity hotels may have had is I think we overestimated some of the demand in some markets that we would have from this great event. Um, and it was exciting. It was interesting to see how one game would impact the next. It's a chain, really. And you need to really, really carefully um, set your calendar and know what's happening in the market so that you can price accordingly. And pricing daily, sometimes twice a day after you would see the results of the next one game, how that would impact what's going to happen the next day into your hotel.
Oh wow. Now, what was the booking window looking like when you have an event like that?
Short. It was extremely short. I mean, and when we looked at booking, we would see some hotels 2 days, 1 day. Again, one of the most important things when we're setting strategy is what's that cancellation policy, right? How aggressive or not were we being with our cancellation policy and what that looked like? Because did every hotel sell out? No. Okay. Were we expecting them to? 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't it happen? I think there's another, thing that we're as hoteliers that we kind of sometimes take for granted, and that's short-term rentals, and how that may have impacted supply at our hotels or demand at the hotels.
One thing that I tell all hotels this, maybe a lot of them don't agree with, but I'm a really big fan of loyalty, especially to guests that are loyal. So yeah, I may be able to get $1,000 a night where I was getting $300 a night before. But why would I want to lose a guest that comes to my hotel every 3 months, every month, every year, just to try to gain, a couple of $100 when I will lose the life of a loyal guest? So one of the things that I tend to do is if I have a high rate and I know I have loyal customers coming, I will send out an email blast and say, hey, you'll get 20% off or whatever the case may be, or you'll get this rate if you need to book. Um, don't go to any of the OTAs, just book with us directly or call reservations. Give them this promo code and they will go ahead and book you at the regular rate so I don't lose that guest next year because FIFA's not coming for another
No, it's
another
not.
4 years.
It's not.
And I can't give anybody the opportunity to take away a loyal guest, So that's just me. But what usually happens on your end?
So I think a lot of times what hotels will do, especially in the branded hotels, is we start applying blackout dates.
Mm-hmm.
And when you apply blackout dates, it's very different. You cannot just easily go back in and say, oops, I want to take those away. Let me delete. You could delete, but you're probably not getting to the decision makers. I like your approach, Bruce. I think that's a great idea and a great approach to it. Proactively, transparency, letting those people know in advance and putting an offer out there in
Mm-hmm.
advance. Because you're right, next year is not going to be, you won't have that demand, that event. And especially I think in a market like South Florida, where in 2026, in addition to FIFA, we had a lot of great demand generators, a lot of great events happening throughout the market, right? So we're in pricing season. We're in budget. A lot of hotels are going through budgeting right now. How do we reset the expectations, knowing that you're not going to be able to drive the ADRs that you did on the off season, right? Because FIFA happened in Florida during the off season, so it was a definitely a help on the ADR section of things,
Mm-hmm.
not so much on the occupancy. We were able to grow RevPAR through that demand on the strength of ADR. But again, were hotels too aggressive? I think some hotels were too aggressive. And I think that's the part where, looking back at it all, what's that total cost to the guest? Because a lot of people coming in internationally, there's a lot of different hurdles that they need to cross in order to be able to stay, or stay at one of our hotels that may have been charging more money than a competitor.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. One of the things that it's really weird to me is because I've used that strategy several times as I always set my rates so high so that no one can book unless they really wanted to. And I'll let the rest of the market sell out, and then I'll start to drop my rate to try to get the last minute bookers that think that they're going to get the greatest deal on the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, whatever the case may be. But sometimes that backfires and blows up in your face, and that's one thing that AI does not do very well is gamble. Like
Right.
sometimes it's a gamble, and sometimes you win, and most of the time you win, but sometimes you do lose. And as you said before, the hotel did not sell out. So what did that strategy look like? And what do you think? What would you have done differently had you had the opportunity to do it again?
So what did it look like? It looked
Mhm.
like having to drop back and punt. Okay, that's what it looked like. 100%. Right. Not an easy pill to digest, because you had so high expectations and you're looking
Mhm.
at numbers. And again, when you're dealing within the brand, you're also protecting your inventory to make sure you're maximizing loyalty, reward, reimbursements. So there's a lot of different things happening, and you've got the OTAs calling you, saying, hey, how come you're not selling? You don't have any inventory available. there's so much happening. Um, what would I have done differently? I would have been more flexible with group.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of hotels um, missed out opportunities on group business over those dates. I probably would have been more because again, you didn't know what was going to happen. You were hoping that one team would win to cross the finish line in order to get that next set of bookings at high demand, okay, into your hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't, it maybe it ends up being a wash, right? Demand would just not be as strong. But if you had some guaranteed base business, and not this isn't necessarily cookie cutter for every hotel, right? I mean, if you're 50 rooms, 70 rooms, perhaps you want to gamble. But if you're, 200 rooms, 500 rooms, probably we're better off taking those groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then building up off of that base, right? Knowing that you have business on the books. That's one thing I think, should have happened. I think the second thing that we could have done better is advanced purchase strategies. I think could have been perhaps more fluid, perhaps more flexible, right? Um, I'm a, I love advanced purchase. There's nothing better than getting paid in advance. I like it when it's non-cancelable, non-refundable. Why not put some of those rates out there on the shelf at perhaps a rate that you would have accepted group at?
Yeah.
And put a cap on it, right? I think from a marketing perspective, I think some hotels that may have paid for additional marketing perhaps overpaid. There was just so much spotlight, right? That some of these marketing campaigns that hotels signed up for, like via Expedia or other OTAs, where they actually had to pay in advance and not know what kind of return they were getting, are now challenged, showing what that return on ad spend was.
Mm-hmm.
Was it worth it?
One of the one you hit one nail right on the coffin. When it comes to international revenue management, the last thing you want to do is close out your inventory to the OTAs, because franchising is very popular in the United States. Outside of the United States, it's not as popular, especially in Europe.
Right.
All right, franchises, you may franchise maybe 10% of the market in Europe, so they don't know your brand, but they know Expedia, they know Booking.com, they know Agoda. So when you close out your inventory to the OTAs, I'm not an OTA fan by any means, but I can you see a lot more international guests coming from the OTAs. So you're
100%.
pretty much, and this is an international tournament. So what
Yes.
you're telling the world is that you don't want to be booked.
Hindsight's 2020. And
Yeah.
to that point, I think many of us in hotels, we look at Expedia as being the dominant company.
Mm-hmm.
In South Florida, in an international market, Booking.com has a
Yeah.
greater international presence and does a fantastic job at capturing that demand. So I think that another opportunity that hotels had is, again, looking back, is how much are we putting into one OTA versus the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where is that demand coming from? And how do we capitalize, and where should we be investing our dollars? Is it with Expedia or is it with booking.com?
Correct. And one of the things that is so crazy is when you're analyzing all of the different channels, you're gonna see a at least a 5 to 10% dip in your own conversions, um, because they're going to the booking, they're going to Expedia, they're going to the OTAs. So you're going to see this huge increase When you're looking at your dashboard in the OTAs, and when you're looking at your own dashboard on your own booking engine, you're going to see a huge decrease, and you're not going to. You're trying to figure out, why am I getting this decrease? You're looking at your ads, your all your traffic sources, and that's what it is. With international business, they're more likely to use OTA versus booking directly until they know you. Now that they know you, they can book direct. But if they don't know you, it's a uphill battle when it comes to
100%.
getting direct bookings. Now, what are some of the other things that you notice when you was going through this experience?
A lot of, let's say, bias, right? We
Mm-hmm.
were hopeful that one team would win, or we were thinking that one team was going to win versus the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nobody really, you don't know, right? And when you're trying to change strategy on the unknown, it's very difficult to do that. Um, I saw hotels get creative, let's say putting rooms out of order in order to protect inventory, because if one team makes it past the finals, it's going to be almost like a much greater demand event. Was that the right way to approach that? I get it. um, but if you've got two, three, four hotels in a very close proximity, perhaps maybe you hedge your bets, do that with one hotel, take a different strategy, run that through another hotel, and run different strategies until you're able to capture the most, um, so that you're protected, right? And you're not
Mm-hmm.
just kind of you're like your investment strategy. It's got to be diversified. You cannot just do one way because that's what you think is going to happen. Um, because when it doesn't, you have to have that explanation.
You know, I remember I was listening to KP, and he was talking about what was happening to his hotels during the NBA Finals, and that he will have the revenue managers watch the game. So like the last 3, 4, or 5 minutes of the game, so they can start increasing the rates if they're going to lose and come back to come back to his town. And I'm like, that is genius. That is
That's
genius
great.
to do something like that. But the other thing that you have to worry about is, do you take a chance on walking a guest? Like, where are you going to walk the guest to if everybody is sold out? So like, what is Wash looking like in those situations?
So luckily, nobody, well, fortunately or unfortunately, nobody was walked.
Okay.
Uh, should we have should we have been in scenarios where there was walk situations? I think a lot of hotels had a couple rooms in reserve, if you would, hanging out in the back to make sure that they didn't have to walk, because you're right.
Hmm.
Where are you going to send anybody?
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
If you're in Miami, does anybody really want to drive up to Fort Lauderdale? Well, I tell you what, in the traffic that I saw down there, I wouldn't. It was unbearable. Even the Brightline, I mean, and by the way, Brightline, I think, did a phenomenal job with transportation and logistics behind that, because one of the things that we heard was about logistics, how to get people transported from the hotels over to the stadiums. And I think overall, everybody did a great job with what they had, and what we were trying to compete for.
Now, one thing so everybody knows before they get this idea, Brightline charges per back. Okay, so there's your ticket, and then there's a per back charge, and there is no Brightline credit card that gives you free luggage. Okay, so you are stuck. So the other thing is that, what is the what type of hotels is in that market? I have a hotel that I can't afford to walk anyone, because there is no other luxury hotel at that level in that area. So you can't play. Oh, we're gonna. oh, we're gonna set it at two. We can handle two negative, and we'll just walk. Like, no, you cannot do that. 'Cause you're gonna have to walk them to another island somewhere. Yeah, so it's very very different. So you really got to know your market when you're looking at wash and you're looking at cancellations. I look at the cancellation report religiously, just for that, so I can kind of get the trend and where I'm at. This way I can forecast appropriately. So those are two main things for sure.
I think our general managers really at that group that I was serving during that time did a phenomenal job with the events, and also getting you're checking in, you're paying a premium. What are we doing different? How are we having fun with it? Right. I think that's another piece that sometimes we overlook because of the pricing. Are we doing anything different with our amenities? How are our uniforms? Are we doing something perhaps a little bit different to have some fun? Are we giving our guests a little chotsky at check-in or check-out so that they have something, a memory piece with them? So when they do leave, they're not just, oh, they looked at their folio and wow, okay, I paid more than I ever did. So making it memorable, because this event's not going to happen for another, how many years?
Another 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's you want to take good care of that guest, right? So that they do have a good memory of this experience, because it definitely is definitely was a big event.
One thing that I don't know about FIFA is that the teams play at the same locations every single year, every single time, or they're always switching. Because the customer loyalty plays a factor in that if they're always someplace new, like they're not coming back. So that's what I want to know.
Yeah, I believe it switches, but again, what something to consider is the capacity of the stadium, right? And then the
Mm.
infrastructure. If they know that this event's going to bring in X amount of people, and those tickets were expensive.
They're like Super Bowl. They're like the same price range as Super
I
Bowl. Or?
bought I bought 3 tickets, and it ended up costing me about $5,000.
Okay.
And these
Okay.
were normal. They weren't any premium, but and that was a starting price. It
Hmm.
could have went higher. Um, everybody had a great time, had a great experience, but only certain areas can absorb that high traffic, that number of people coming in. Um, Now, for the hotels, what this did, I think was something that people weren't necessarily banking on. They will drive. They would drive to Fort Lauderdale and further north to avoid having to pay the premium. Now, are you stuck in traffic? Are you now forced to, take a different route of transportation? I believe so, but just so much demand and people, shopping for the best price because it's plane tickets, it's food, it's everything else in between.
I was in Atlanta when FIFA was happening, and there's the hotel. I was staying at the Hyatt Regency in Atlanta, Hyatt Regency Atlanta. Crazy. I was actually there for something completely different. I was there for a podcast summit, and it was just crazy there. Right. I went to the Signia Hilton. They
Okay.
have the best shrimp and grits I ever had in my life. So
Okay.
whenever I'm in Atlanta, I go straight to the Signia. I go straight to that restaurant, and I get those shrimp and grits. And it was crazy, insane busy. The next day, dead. I'm like, this is incredible. Nobody stayed. They were gone as soon as it was over.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said, for markets like Miami, where this happened over the slow season or the off season, it we saw that where you saw a couple of days where you had the spike and then it was gone. Markets like Boston, where this was in the in season, different story, right?
Mm.
So again, their RevPAR rose, but it was not just banked on ADR. It was a certain, a good increase of occupancy as well. So again, I think different markets felt the impact of the event differently, and but one common denominator was, you know, when is it all going to pick up, and how much group did you layer in or not.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that whole piece for group, and my really saying the push for have that base business in advance is probably more applicable to a market like Miami, because, and again, don't forget, we're a lot of keys in that market, and I always say, let's not forget about Airbnb and all the other lodging options in between that people have.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, one thing I would want to do is send out a survey and ask the guests, did you book your flight first or did you book your hotel first? Because that's going to make a big difference when you're trying to promote for the next one. If they're booking their flight first, that means you still have a chance. If they're booking a hotel first, that means you're dead in the water.
Right.
Unless they come across a better rate and cancel. So
Well,
what type of, yeah.
that was just it. A lot of the booking restrictions, right? Non-cancelable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And very, very hard to get out of, because what we didn't want to have happen was people book, the team didn't win, and then get stuck with a bunch of cancellations. So you could book, but you'd have to prepay X amount of dollars right then and there at booking. And, people want flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it may be better for them to just pay the higher price and worried about, hey, I could get out of this cancellation later because my team didn't win.
Right.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Did you see? I'm not sure if you know this information, but for the prepaid reservations, did you see an influx of chargebacks after their team lost and they weren't going to the next game?
Chargebacks. Nobody would do something like that. No, that never happens. So I don't have any statistics on that
Okay.
right now. That would definitely be an interesting piece to monitor and say how many chargebacks did we get from that, and then try to put that into a bucket and then subcategories, right? And because you're right, it's unfortunate. We'll get people who figure a way to. They may, even if they stayed. If you complain enough, a lot of times, refunds will be credited, and these if you don't, and that's why I think it's so important to make sure you have a good system in place, especially during a high demand event like this, because if you don't respond back to the credit card company in, what is it, 24 or 48 hours, it's an
Mhm.
automatic win for the customer, for the guest.
This is what most I had did accounting for like 15 years, so I used to do it chargebacks all the time. This is what most people don't know. There's a federal law. It's 15 USC 1666 that says they have 60 days. So
Okay.
if the charge is 60 days and over, then no matter what happens, it's an automatic loss.
Wow.
So you have someone that's booking, 6 months, 4 months, 3 months out,
Hmm.
prepaid. The charge is already there. Versus someone who say, "Hey, I made my reservations. It's 24 hours. I didn't go." You have more weight if the older the charge is versus
Oh,
how
wow.
the more the charge is. Yeah. So yeah, that's crazy. But man, I swear these people that I will. Are you supposed to give that charge to the players that lost the game? The hotel is not responsible for it. The hotel is not responsible. Send a bill to the players that lost the game. Send a bill to
Exactly.
Argentina. That's how that works, man. What else did you see? Any other tips or tricks that you've seen that that would benefit the viewers that you've seen when it came to FIFA?
Just making sure that I think the one of the things that I liked that our operations team did was getting the break rooms decorated, getting people to have fun with it. It was very busy time for the hotel. And again, when guests are paying a premium, the expectations rise significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing all of that in advance, coaching the teams, the hotel teams on what to do in different scenarios was definitely beneficial, because this is a time where OSAT scores can take a little bit of a hit, and it seems that we were able to prevail. And again, by taking good care of the guest, makes it that much better and a great experience. It would be very interesting to see on a chart, okay, during, as those rates came in higher, what the service scores were like at different hotels over that period of time. But again, I think we did a great job at taking good care of those guests, and I applaud, put that right back to leadership that's set the expectations and met up with the teams in advance, and we're having fun with it, right? Because you got to have fun with it.
For sure, for sure. All right, Jason, how can everybody get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Jason D'Agostino, or feel free to give me a call at 718-640-3820. That is my cell phone number.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. Thank you for joining us for another show. This is Bruce Jordan of Michael Jordan Hotels, signing out. Hey, what's going on? It's Bruce Jordan, the hotel revenue expert. I just want to take a quick second to thank you for watching this video. If you could just do us a big favor and just subscribe to the channel. We have a lot more videos like this, more information, great information about hotels. I'm also the author of the Hotel Revenue Bible. You can get that book on hotelrevenuebible.com. And we are here to answer all your questions. So if you have any questions, just shoot us a quick text at 321-321-2002. That's 321-321-2002. And you can book a revenue call. Go to hotelrevenuecall.com and we can answer any and all your questions. Just make an appointment with me. You'll do one-on-one with me. You'll be able to do one-on-one with me, and we could go ahead and get all your questions answered and see if you have any revenue issues that needs to be resolved. Talk to you soon. Thank you again. Hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate you.